of concern and be together through this crisis, thinking about and learning about things that were of deep concern to us. And if you remember, we started way back when. I think the first one was in April. I don't have the list in front of me. And we did it weekly until we were out of lockdown. And now we're continuing to do it monthly. And we will continue to do it monthly unless, God forbid, the city really goes in a bad way and we go into lockdown and we have to have a more serious, intensive, immersive connection. But we have the dates now. And for the, we will be meeting again. We'll have another town hall on November 16th and then on December 21st. And we'll be sending out those dates as we get closer. A couple of community-wide moments I want to acknowledge. First of all, it is Sukkot. We are in the middle days of Sukkot, and I see that some of you, Randi Sarikoff at least, is in her sukkah, and that's beautiful that you're joining us from your sukkah, and we're so sad. This is the first year CBST has not been able to have a sukkah. I just want to make sure everybody knows that this Friday night, we have Shmini Atzeret services, Shmini Atzeret Shabbat services, and then Shabbat morning is Shmini Atzeret morning services, which will include Kohelet and Yizkor is said on the morning of Shmini Atzeret, and Tfilat Geshem, which is a very beautiful prayer when we begin praying for rain. And then Saturday night is Simchat Torah, which is again going to have to be a little bit upended, and we've had to be creative in trying to figure out how to do Simchat Torah. And since we can't do our regular dancing hakafot, but we wanted to come up with something that would deeply celebrate the Torah before we do the reading of the Torah. We read the end of Deuteronomy and go into the beginning of Genesis. We've invited Rabbi Linda Motzkin, who is a soferet, a scribe, to join us. And she's going to do about a 45-minute, 1-hour teaching about how Sifrei Torah are written. What are all the different pieces to writing a Sefer Torah? And she is going to be zooming in from her studio. So she'll give us a tour of all of her instruments and of the hides that she has to, I forgot what the word is for hide. Cure and prepare and whatever all the way to the ink she has to prepare to the way that she writes a scroll. So we think that'll be a very exciting. She came, some of you might remember when we dedicated the new Sefer Torah, she did a similar class, but this will be different. She came into our place. She's going to be in her studio showing us all of her equipment and teaching us how a Torah is made. So we thought that would be a fantastic use of our technology to do something that'll deeply honor the Torah, given that we can't actually all dance together, but we'll have the regular Torah reading. The other thing I want to announce is that like we transitioned from weekly to monthly town halls, we're transitioning the CBST Connects into an opt-in program until, God forbid, we go into another downturn or an upswing of cases where we'll increase it. So you're going to be asked if you want to stay being reached out to, being connected by your connectors, and you're welcome to stay in the program, but others who want to opt out now will be able to do it. So those are just a couple of community-wide announcements I wanted to clarify before we begin today. I am thrilled that we have such a fantastic CBST team, Sabrina Farber and Harold Levine leading, with Rabbi Marisa James as our social justice coordinator, thinking through how to increase our members and our members' connections, our members' families and friends in the deeply sacred democratic act of voting. And for sure, I think it's safe to say, never has it become more important to vote, and never has it been so complicated and obscure how to actually do it. So our whole town hall tonight is going to be about voting and all different related issues. And I know our team has prepared fantastic materials for everyone. We're going to start from words from Randi, who some of you know is spending the month of October on a big bus going around to various swing states. And you can follow her on there. Oh, look, there's a picture and Randi's tweet. There's Randi's bus. So she's driving around on a very COVID protected bus, and you can follow her on Twitter or on Facebook. She's home for a couple of days, and on Wednesday, you're going to Kansas, right? Tomorrow she's going to Kansas. She was in California, Nevada, and Colorado already. and is home for a couple of days while the bus is driving up to Kansas. So we asked Randi if she would talk a little bit about how things look on the road and a little bit of a pep talk to all of us who are doing the deep dive. And then we'll turn it over to Rabbi James, and then to Harold and to Sabrina. So Randi, you want to come over here where we have to change seats?
Hi, everybody. So it is great that, Sharon I started looking up all of the, the dates and the way New Jersey does things and Florida does things and New York does things. And Sharon said, don't do that. Our folks have done it much better than you would ever be able to look up today. So stop doing that and just because they have put it all together. And so I can't wait for the rest of this because I'm going to learn because the rules are really, really complicated. And in some ways, because the rules of voting are so complicated right now, and I know this is, I'm not going to do anything that jeopardizes CBST's tax exempt status. It allows a lot of violence about voting. And because the rules are so complicated, it allows a lot of questions about voting. But at the end of the day, we have spent in America over 270 years attempting to get this right. Women didn't have the right to vote initially. African Americans didn't have the right to vote initially. African Americans were viewed as 3/5 of a person. There has been a lot of blood that has been shed to actually have the right to vote in the United States of America. And there's been a long, long history of trying to suppress that vote. And in some ways, what has happened in the last several months is part of that long history. Like, for example, in Florida, where a ballot initiative passed by 60% to actually give people who were formerly felons the right to vote, right to get their vote back. And the current governor has actually stopped that and has forced people to pay their fines. And when Michael Bloomberg and others have said that they will pay their fines for these formerly convicted felons, the Florida administration has gone back into court. That's just one example. Another example, in Michigan, in the last few days, Dana Nessel, the Attorney General in Michigan, has just actually moved to indict the following two people, GOP operatives, I'm just being factual, who basically sent messages home to robocalls to thousands of African Americans saying, if you vote by mail, the police will get your information and your information could be used to criminally convict you, or banks will get your information and it could be used to actually stop you from getting loans. This stuff is going on right now. It's not that this happened 20 years ago or 30 years ago. This is going on right now. That's on top of voter suppression. That's on top of gerrymandering, voter suppression in Texas. There is, the governor just stopped them from having drop boxes in every town. There is now, and these Texas counties are huge, there is now only one drop box for vote by mail in every single county. That is to try and stop people from being able to vote. I say this because part of what's going on today is the question of whether or not people can vote. People can vote safely or conveniently. The bottom line is this: democracy hangs by a thread. You all know this. Sharon has talked about this in every single one of the drashes that I have heard. It hangs by a thread. We know it. We've been warned by it over and over again. The way to actually make sure we have a democracy is to vote. That is the only way right now. We're not going to have it in terms of the Supreme Court. We're not going to have it with this current Senate, and we're not going to have it with this current president. We have one shot at this, and that's in the next 29 days. And there are ways to vote. You can vote by mail in every single state now. You can vote in person in every state now. And you can vote early in virtually every state. In Florida, in New Jersey, in Connecticut, and in New York, you can vote early and you can vote safely early. So all I can say is, and this is part of the reason that we're doing this bus in terms of 15 states over 30 days, is that people are feeling very isolated and very afraid. Chaos dampens the vote. Being fearful dampens the vote. We need to make sure that people see voting right now is as courageous as when John Lewis talked about it on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. This is what will save our democracy. That is why we're doing this bus. That is why we are doing Visibility Saturdays. And that is what I just want to encourage people to do. Please, anybody, there are ways to do it. It is easy in most places to vote by mail, put it in an envelope, or drop it in a box. Vote early, which is what I think is the best thing to do. Vote in person early or vote on election day. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. So follow Randy. It's really fun to watch her bus go around, and she's meeting with different secretaries of state and governors and senators and union members in all these different states to GOTV, get out the vote. I want to end my part by just quoting from Masha Gessen's book, Surviving Autocracy, which came out in June, in which she quotes a Hungarian sociologist, which I asked her about when she spoke at CBST for Pride Shabbat. And I should say they, excuse me, their pronouns are they now. This Hungarian sociologist said that there are 3 steps in talking about European autocracies, by the way, in which autocracies happen. One is the attempt at autocracy. The second is the consolidation of autocracy, and the third is the complete structure of autocracy. And what Masha Gessen said is that this coming election is the last attempt that we have to prevent autocracy with the current systems, according to what this sociologist says. So we all know what the stakes are. Now the question is how to build a community in CBST which supports all of us to do all we can, both to make sure we all have a voting plan, a plan to vote, and a way to do it. And I agree with Randy, to the extent it's possible to vote early and vote in person, that's the best way to do it. But if you can't do that, the other ways matter as well as to keep reaching out. Sarah Sloan just said she's writing her 500th postcard to voters in Georgia and in Ohio. 500 postcards, one human being is doing. Fantastic, Sarah. They're all things that we can do. And thank you so much to Sabrina, who's working with the Thursday group doing stuff. Part of what we want to do tonight is to energize people, to make everybody have a personal plan to vote, and then to energize people to do other things as well, to make sure others have a plan to vote and vote as well. So I'd like to turn this over to Rabbi James, and we're going to learn a lot tonight. So put on your seatbelts, have a pen and paper, and I'm looking forward to the program.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Kleinbaum, and thank you so much, Randy. I've been following you on the bus. The tweets are fantastic. So I want to echo what Rabbi Kleinbaum just said, is that right, everyone can do something. No one can do everything, but everyone can do something. And what everyone in this room here has been doing, what everyone in this community has been doing, has already been spectacular. And if what you are doing right now is preparing to cast your vote, that is spectacular and necessary. If what you are doing is writing your 500th postcard or sending your 300th text message, or reaching out to a friend or a relative who lives in another state, those are all necessary, amazing, powerful things. And the amount of power behind this community is just spectacular. So I want to turn it over to Harold and Sabrina, who are going to walk us through where we are, what we've been doing, what this community is doing, and what we are looking at with this election. And I want to also just say that everything that we are about to share will be sent out and shared with all of you. So don't feel like you have to scribble down crazy notes or take pictures of your screen. All of this will come to you tomorrow, I promise. Harold and Sabrina, take it away.
All right. Hello, everybody. Harold here, Sabrina in my other little box. Let me just start by saying three things. One of them is that we are a synagogue, and this is a nonpartisan presentation. This is not to convince you to vote any way in particular. It is to show you how to vote. Secondly, we are presenting the best information available off of multiple conversations and websites. If you have a question that you do not get an answer to from us, or you really want to make sure it's right, we suggest that you contact your local board of elections. They are the ultimate authority on this. And we want everyone to take the COVID-19 protections that are right for them. We will be talking about voting in person. We will be urging people to vote early in person. But if that is not right for you, do not do it. You need to protect yourself. I will also say that we have put up a terrific resource, the CBST Votes website, cbst.org votes. Just go to the CBST homepage to see it. We have a voting plan, and here and away we go. All right, let me see how to. We've had our introduction, we've had our insights from the road. Sabrina and I will be giving an overview of the 2020 election, and then we will have breakouts. You can stay in this Zoom room with me for your voting plan, which is a detailed description of how to vote in New York. Or you can go into another Zoom room and we will have all the instructions before we do the breakouts with Sabrina to talk about what you can do once you have your own plan, how to reach out to other people. So what's going on for 2020? We have an election. You may not have known this, but the president is up for election. 1/3 of Senate seats are up, all 435 House seats, and various state and local elections. Here's what's going on. We concentrate on New York, New Jersey, and Florida. That is where the majority of our members are. The president is on the ballot in all three states. There are no senators in the ballot in New York or Florida. Cory Booker is running for re-election in New Jersey. All House seats in New York, New Jersey, and Florida are up for vote. None of the governors in these three states are up for vote. In New York State, all state senators and state assembly people are up for the vote. In New Jersey, none of them are. And in Florida, 50% of the state senate is up for the vote, but not the state assembly. And if you go to cbst.org/vote, you can see exactly what's on your ballot where you live. The presidential election. There is a popular vote and an electoral college vote. The popular vote is not what counts. It is the electoral college vote, as we have found out. Each state gets a number of votes equal to their number of representatives plus their 2 senators. Adding up to 538, there are 3 for the District of Columbia. It is generally winner take all. Over 50% of the popular vote and all the electoral college votes go to that candidate. In New York State, if 50.5% of the popular vote goes for one candidate or the other, that candidate will get all of New York State's electoral votes. There are 270 votes needed to win. Here is a map of the Electoral College. New York State, which used to have the most, now has 29 electoral votes. Florida has 29, Texas 38, California 55, on and on. No state has fewer than 3 because every state has 2 senators and at least 1 representative. The Senate, there are 100 senators and the vice president, so you could have a 50-50 vote, in which case the vice president casts a tie-breaking vote. There are currently 53 Republicans and 47 Democrats. If Republicans keep the White House, 4 seats would be needed to change control because the vice president would be a Republican. If Democrats win the White House, only 3 seats need to flip to change control of the Senate. And as I said, 1/3 of the Senate is up for vote every 2 years. There are, let's see, whoops. I lost the one, oh, the House. Okay, the House. There are 435 seats in the House of Representatives. State delegations vary by the size of the state. This is why the census is so important, because every 10 years, there's reapportionment, and if a state loses population compared to the whole, they may lose representatives. If they gain it, they gain representatives. All representatives are up for election every 2 years. There are currently 232 Democrats, 197 Republicans, 1 Libertarian, and 5 vacant seats. And I just realized that I gave the part of the presentation that Sabrina was going to give, and I apologize. The voting process for 2020. As Randi said, it is more complicated, but everyone should take a deep breath. It's not that complicated. We are here to figure out a voting process for everyone. There are mail votes, which used to be called, in some places, absentee votes. They are functionally the same this year. They are ballots that are submitted by mail or in person. You can drop them in a mailbox, take them to the post office, drop them in a drop box, and we'll be talking more, drop box, which can be at a polling place, or sometimes they're independent of a polling place, or you can bring them to the Board of Elections. There's in-person voting. There's early in-person voting, which is October in New York. It starts on October 24th and runs through November 1st. That is 9 days, including 2 weekends. In New Jersey, there is no in-person early voting. Everyone, all registered voters were sent a ballot, a mail ballot that they returned by mail. You can go to a polling place. So, and then there's voting on election day, which is November 3rd, which we will talk about in more detail. In New Jersey, if you go to the polling place on election day, all you're doing is filling out your mail ballot while you're standing at your polling place, basically. Sabrina, do you want to talk about in-person versus mail ballots? You want me to keep going?
Sure. No, sure. I mean, I think it's important, building on what Randi said, to understand the difference between in-person and mail ballots, especially this year in particular. As Harold points out in the PowerPoint, a voting machine will spit out a ballot if it's done incorrectly. So you'll know immediately standing there that it's not okay, and then you get an opportunity to redo it. When you mail in an absentee ballot, if you make a mistake, the state will just disqualify it and throw it out. There are a few cases where the state will actually contact you and say, hey, wait a minute, you made a mistake, and give you a chance to fix it. But most of the time, your ballot is what it is. And if you screw it up, that's it, your vote is lost. So there's that to consider. And I think too, the idea that it's much more immediate, and it's harder to tamper with the immediate results of folks who are voting, and those machines are totaling as they go. Again, and the issue behind mail ballots, whether they're dropped off or mailed in, is how long is it going to take all the counting to happen? How long will the certifications be? And what if there are contested places? We all remember the hanging chads in Florida, so let's not redo that. However, if voting by mail is your option, then absolutely vote by mail.
And I will add, I am a poll worker. And it is very frequent that someone fills out their ballot, they go to the machine, they scan it, and it's frequent enough that we have all sorts of procedures for that, because either they've voted for one person more than once. In the ballot, sometimes the same candidate is listed under 2 different party affiliations. They made a stray mark, or they forgot to mark it at all, and it comes out. And if you're at a polling place and that happens, you can go right back to the table, you get another ballot, you get 3 chances. And once it is scanned and in, you know that your ballot is registered. If you had mailed in that ballot with those same errors, you would not know until, in the best case scenario, you check to see what happened and they say your ballot was disqualified. And ballots that are cast on an electronic voting machine are registered immediately. And right after the polls close, that tally is released. That is not the case, at least in New York, with mail ballots. And also, there are many technical issues which can invalidate a mail ballot if you don't sign it in the right place, if you don't date it, if the envelopes aren't put in correctly, if it arrives late, your mail ballot is invalidated. So, would you like to review that again? So the in-person voting machines can spit it out. Voter has a chance to correct ballot. Votes counted as soon as they're cast. Mail is more convenient. There is a lower risk of exposure to COVID-19, but votes may not be counted until after Election Day. Sabrina, you want to make the case for in-person voting?
Again?
Given the high number of mail ballots, so we believe that there will be challenges to these election results, and that the election results that people are used to, an election night when there's a big screen and at midnight they say, this is who won the election. It is very likely that the eventual results of the election will be different than the tally that you see on your screen on election night. However, the party that is ahead on election night will have the advantage, we believe. And so it should be, if you believe that your party should have that advantage, voting in person will help to have that party's count be higher on election night. So our suggestion, we will end with this and then we will be breaking out, is that if you're a New Yorker, you request and fill out a mail ballot, place it in the envelope, but do not mail it yet. Find in your early voting polling place and go there with your mail ballot. If possible, vote in person and destroy your mail ballot. In New York State, if you voted in person, they don't check to see who received a mail ballot, they check to see who sent it in. And actually, even if you've mailed in a ballot, they don't count them until after the election. And when they sit down to count them, they take a look at who voted. And if they have a record that you voted in person, they do not count your mail ballot. If it turns out that in-person voting is not possible, you can then place your mail ballot in a drop box at the polling place or bring it to the post office immediately. So that
can I mention one thing quickly before we go to the breakout?
Absolutely.
Some of you may or may not have gotten a mailer like this, and it came a couple weeks ago in New York. I hope you didn't throw it away, because nestled inside are your voting cards, and these cards will admit you not only to your polling place, but they also give you a barcode so you can vote contactless. You don't have to sign any paper any longer. You don't even have to pick up that pen on the iPad to sign in. They will scan this code and you're already in the system. So if you want to have the most COVID safe experience, find your cards, your voting cards, within this big mailer that those of us in New York received.
That is correct. I went to my polling training. There are now iPads at every table. If you have that, you can know directly, you can go right to your table, they scan it and it pulls up your record. So that is the end of the introductory part of this. We're now going to break out. Sabrina is going to, and Marisa, Rabbi James is going to.
Hello. Yeah, I just want to raise up some of the questions from the chat to make sure that everybody hears answers to these, because I think they're good questions. There's a question about getting a ballot in New York, an absentee ballot that says absentee military ballot.
Okay, I will answer that. That's like eat, shoots, and leaves. They left out some important punctuation. It should say absentee/military ballot. It is the same ballot. Someone left out that slash. It is either for civilian or military use. Don't worry about that.
Fantastic. There's your answer, everybody. Can one member of a family bring multiple ballots to a drop box?
Okay, it depends by state. If you're a family member, a legal representative, or you have something in writing that says you can, you can. You cannot bring 100 ballots from your, unless you cannot, generally don't try to collect all the ballots from your apartment building and bring them. I would say that if you're going to do this, you go to the website of the Board of Elections for the state or county where you're doing it, because there may be varying regulations, and I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, but generally you can bring a family member's ballot with you.
Fantastic.
What else?
Somebody wants to know about the question about voting twice. Isn't that a crime? I'm assuming this is referring to filling out your ballot, bringing it with you, and then voting in person, if that is a possibility.
So attempting to vote, so I will say that a close reading of the New York State election website says that you can request a mail ballot and not use it and vote in person. You can request a mail ballot and mail it and vote in person. And that is not against the law in New York State. What happens is they have it, as we said, you're now checking into a polling place electronically, and they have that database immediately. So that when they look at the outside envelope or they scan it, there's now a barcode, they will say, oops, Harold Levine went and voted in a polling place and it was registered, and so we are not going to use his ballot. In Florida, you need to bring your mail ballot back and hand it in. In New Jersey, it's all mail ballots, so there's no such thing at this point of voting in person. And you would really have to try to be fraudulent, you'd have to be purposefully fraudulent for it to be illegal. But again, You can call your Board of Elections. You can go to your Board of Elections website. Is there any more questions, Rabbi?
The last question is popping up a lot now. If you did not get this envelope with the barcode that Sabrina just held up, or if you think you threw it away by mistake, how do you get that information?
I can answer that question.
Great.
You go to your, for New York State, you go to the New York State Board of Elections website, and you find your polling place, and you will also find what your districts are, so you know what your table is. If you are a registered voter, you are in the iPad. If you have the card, it makes things a little faster. If you don't have the card, what we do is we ask you for your last name and your date of birth, and we find the database, and we look at you, make sure you're about the same age as what it says on the iPad, that you have the right address. We turn it around and you sign it. So you can vote without that card. The card makes things a little faster.
Right, exactly.
Wonderful. So yes, you don't need to have that card. It'll just make it a bit easier.
Correct.
All right, and I want to encourage everybody who still has questions. There will be a chance to ask in the next part of this as well, your questions. And this is how we're going to now split into two groups. Harold is going to stay in this room, in this Zoom. And so if you are trying to figure out your voting plan and you want some support, some community, as you think about what's the best way for you to vote and to figure out how to do that and to make sure you have the information you need, you're going to stay right here in this Zoom. We are going to share a link in the chat to a different Zoom room. And in the different Zoom room, Sabrina Farber will be going one step further. If you already know your voting plan and you want to help get other people to the polls, help make sure that other people are inspired to do their civic duty, to know what are the resources for that and what are the best ways to connect with people doing that, you're going to click, there's the link. Thank you, Jesse, and thank you, Bruce. It's in there twice. Oh, wait, nope, sorry, hold on. Jesse and Bruce, I'm going to clarify with you. I see two different Zoom links there. Bruce, follow Bruce's link. Okay, CBST Tech Zoom link will take you to the room with Sabrina. You'll get out of this one and go into that one. And there we'll be talking about these different ways to postcards and texting and all these great different ways to be involved that way. So if you are staying to make your voting plan, you're going to stay right here. You're not going to do anything. You're going to watch Harold. And the rest of you who want to come and figure out what you're doing next, if you already have your plan. The
Right.
link
I will have a very detailed look at voting in New York State with a glance at voting in Florida and New Jersey. If you know how to do that, or you've already voted, do not stay in this room. Sabrina has some terrific things to say to you. So should we let people go? And you can get back in this room. I don't think we're locked. You can, if it turns out that you left and want to come back, that's fine. I will not be upset if you spend 5 minutes with me and say, I know this already and I'm going to see Sabrina. So shall we?
Let's. And if you have questions, you can send a question to me and I'm happy to answer any questions about making that decision or technical answers.
And we have an email, vote@cbst.org. If you wind up at the end of this night and you still have questions, just send them there. They come to Sabrina, me, and Rabbi James. These presentations will be sent out. Everybody who was here tonight, you'll get these presentations. You'll get additional links and materials. So let's do it. Let's give them a second to. All right, so I'm going to get started here. Hello, everybody. How are you? So this is making your voting plan. Here's what is included in making your voting plan. You check your registration. You can go online. All you actually need to do is to go to Google, check my registration. It takes 30 seconds. You enter, it's probably your name, your date of birth, and your address, and it'll say, yes, Or Ezrahi. We see you registered at this address. Here is your polling place. Here's your early polling place. Here is your election day polling place. Here are the table you're going to. If you were not registered, you need to register, and you need to register quickly. Once you've confirmed that you're registered, you decide whether you want to vote in person or with a mail ballot. If you want to vote with a mail ballot, you need to, in New York State, request that mail ballot. You can do it online, and if you do it online, you can track your request that it was received. And the next 2 slides from now, we'll have the deadlines for these things. You need to complete and return that mail ballot, and then you can track your mail ballot. If you want to vote in person, you need to decide, I'm going to vote early, and you know where your polling place location and hours are, or on election day. Let me tell you that your early voting polling place is almost certainly not the polling place that you're used to going to. It may be farther away, although in Manhattan, it's probably not more than a brisk 20-block walk down or uptown. And the hours will be different. It's not going to be the 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. They vary. But since there are going to be 9 days during which there's early voting, I would suggest very strongly that if you are going to vote in person, you vote early. There are a lot of long-term poll workers who are older who are not going to be working this election. I was at a training session for new poll workers. I have been a new poll worker. Even a well-trained, well-meaning new poll worker is not going to be as efficient as a long old-timer. And there are going to be lines out the door, trust me. So if you're going to vote in person and you're willing to wait in a line, make a plan. Bring your little folding chair, bring your cell phone battery, bring something warm, bring a mug of coffee, bring something to read, and go there early. And the last thing is you should know what's on your ballot before you vote, so that you don't take a look, you don't show up at the polling place and say, wait a second, I don't understand my ballot, I don't know who I'm voting for. We do have this document that Corey Dane created for us. This is just the front side, which helps you go through all of these questions, preparing, registering, knowing what's on your ballot, filling it out and return it. There will be a link to this document in the email that you get. If you don't want to wait, you go to cbst.org/vote and you can download it from there. Here are some of the deadlines that you need to know. In New York, the last day to register, either online, in person, or via mail, is October 9th. That means that you should be checking right now to make sure you're registered, because if you aren't registered, you can still register. The last day to request a mail ballot, either online, in person, or via email, is October 27th. You can start mail ballot return as soon as the ballot is received. However, as I said, it is probably best to hold it and see if you can vote early in person. Early voting begins on October 24th. Early voting ends on November 1st. Election day is November 3rd. The deadline for return of mail ballots in person is 9 p.m. on November 3rd. The deadline for return of mail ballots via mail, they need to be postmarked on November 3rd. If you hold on a second, I need to unshare my screen because I don't see any of you, and I'm going to share and I want to see at least one of you, and I want to share my screen again. So that is New York State. In New Jersey, the deadline, last day to register, is October 13th. You do not need to request a mail ballot. All registered voters in New Jersey will be receiving a mail ballot automatically. I will correct myself. If for some reason you're in New Jersey and you don't receive your mail ballot automatically, and I believe they have already been sent and many people have received them, you should contact the Board of Elections and ask, where is my mail ballot? If you moved and you didn't update your record with the Board of Elections, that might be a reason that your mail ballot is not sent to you. In New Jersey, there is no reason to hold on your mail ballots because there is no real in-person balloting. So you send it in as soon as you receive it. There is no early voting. Election day is November 3rd. But as I said, if you go to the polling place, all you're going to be doing is basically filling out a mail ballot at the polling place. They need to be returned in person in a drop box by November 3rd or by email, by mail, postmarked November 3rd. In Florida, the last day to register is today. The last day to request a mail ballot is October 24th. You do need to request one in Florida. Mail ballot return starts as soon as it's received. There is early voting in Florida. Actually, there's more early voting in Florida than in New York, from October 19th to November 2nd. Election day again, November 3rd. Deadline for return of mail ballots in person is November 3rd. If I understand correctly, in Florida, mail ballots must be received by November 3rd. So if you're using a mail ballot in Florida, make sure that you mail it in soon enough or drop it off soon enough that they have it by November 3rd. Did Rabbi James stay with me? Is someone just checking chat for me? If someone can pipe up, or do I need to stop a minute to?
No, I'm looking at chat. So far, we've answered all the questions. It was mostly about links.
Or as Rocky has both her little blue electronic hand and her beautiful hand up. Aura, can you unmute yourself, or I will ask you to unmute. Aura has a question.
Yeah, I have a question. I mean, aside from the decision about whether to do mail in the ballot or do the early voting, which is the issue for me, but that's a decision I guess I have to make. If I've gotten a ballot and I choose to do the early voting, do I need to do something with that ballot? Because there's some indication in some system that I've received that ballot.
Wait, okay, you're in New York.
Yes.
No, you don't. If you requested a mail ballot and you got it, but you decide, you know what, I'm not going to use it. One strategy is just go and vote early. Another one is to bring that filled in ballot with you, because if you get there and you think, you know what, this line is crazy, I don't feel comfortable, there's not enough social distancing, something else happens, you already have a filled out ballot and there is a drop box, although I am not sure whether the drop box is inside the polling place or not, whether you have to wait in line to get into the polling place to drop it off or not. The worst thing is if you go on October 24th, 25th, or 26th, you say, I can't do this, you go directly to the post office and you drop it off. So I will keep on going then. We're all okay? Can I have a few hands? We're all okay?
One more question. Is it better?
I'll charge you more, Aura.
I'm sorry. Is it better to, if that's the scenario, is it better to mail it or to drop it off at the Board of Elections? Which is safer?
I think if it's a week ahead of time and you can get to the post office and it only has to be postmarked by November 3rd, unless I can't answer that question definitively, but I would think you would be okay to bring it at the post office. And I'm hoping that when they set up the polling places, you do not have to wait in the long snaking line to register to vote in person. There is an express line to drop off your ballot in the ballot drop box right there. Oh, the other thing is,
I don't know how much concern we have in New York about mail getting delivered in time.
By mail, you know what? That's a question I'm going to say I can't answer for you. You have to answer that for yourself. I will say that although you have to vote in your own early vote, in New York City, you have to go to the early voting polling place that's assigned to you. You can drop a ballot off at anyone, and I guess there is a possibility that there might be an early voting polling place which is geographically closer to you, but it's not your own. So you might want to check that. Let me keep on going because there's quite a bit more to share here. So we've gone over this. Hold on. Okay. Please note, in New York, the mailed ballots returned by mail need postage. There is some discussion whether it's 1 or 2 stamps. 1 stamp will almost certainly get it there. If you have a 2-page ballot, it might be that you need 2. But I would say you need to put postage on it. And if you put 1 stamp on it and put it in the mail, it will get there. New Jersey ballots are prepaid first class. No one has to put a stamp on. In Florida, it varies by county. Mail ballot counts begin, as far as I have been told, the New York count does not begin until after the polls close. New Jersey count begins 10 days before Election Day because there is no real in-person voting. I am not sure about Florida. As I said, your early voting location may differ from your regular voting location and the hours will differ. New Jersey does not have regular in-person voting. I talked about what happens if you requested a mail ballot and don't use it. And as I said, this is in the information I have gotten off of all these websites and conversations with the Board of Election. If you feel you have a special situation, you should you should email us so we know about it, but you should also be in touch with the Board of Elections. So, filling out a New York mail ballot. I am going to switch now to my ballot because I got my mail ballot, and I think it's easier if I do this by showing you my ballot. So hold on a second. Did I have that open? Give me a second. Hold on. I know I have it here. It's here. Okay. Is this it? No, this is not it. Hold on just a second and I will get you my ballot. Hold on. All right. Okay. We are back. Let me screen share this. Thank you for your patience. All right. Everybody can see this? This is my ballot package. Move this. View. Okay. So this is what I received. There was an outside envelope. Then inside it, there is the privacy envelope. There is the return envelope. And there is my ballot. When I have completed my ballot, and we'll talk about that, it goes into the privacy envelope. And it's very important here where the X is, you sign this, you date it, you put your ballot in it, and then you rip off the protective tape, you close it, and it goes inside your return envelope. It goes inside the return envelope so that you see this window. There is right here there is a barcode which needs to show when you put your privacy envelope into your return envelope and seal it. I'm going to go back for a second because there were some problems in Brooklyn where you received an envelope with your correct name and address, but the pre-printed information here on the privacy envelope was incorrect. I understand that everyone in Brooklyn who received those wrong packages will be sent a corrected package. I'm just going to stop for a second and I'm going to see, is there anyone here who is in Brooklyn who did have that problem? Did anyone, I'm not seeing anybody raise their hands. Okay, so I'll go back to the screen share here with this. Once you put this in and returned it, then you're ready to either put your stamp on it and put it in the mail or drop it off at a ballot drop box. Here is a ballot, and here is one of the problems that I saw ballots rejected for quite often at my polling place. Joe Biden is listed as a Democrat and listed under working parties. Donald Trump is listed as a Republican and listed under a conservative. You have to vote for your candidate. You can only vote for your candidate once. If you vote for Joe Biden under both Democratic and working families, it will be rejected. If you're at a polling place, it'll spit it right back out and you'll be told that you need to vote again. If you do this and you mail it that way, it will be rejected. That is probably one of the most important reasons for them being rejected. I will also say that in the instructions it says, mark the little oval next to the name. The little oval is actually above the name. And we discussed the fact that it should say military/absentee ballot, but it doesn't. Another question I got quite frequently at a polling place was, On the back of the ballots, if there are judges, generally there are as many candidates as there are positions, and they're only one party. So you want to mark, I'm not telling you who to vote for, but if you see a ballot that looks like this, and there are 4 separate lines, and everybody's in one thing for judges, there are 4 openings and there are 4 candidates. And if you want to approve the choice of those 4 candidates, what you do is you mark for each of the 4 of them. And then this is the card that Sabrina was talking about. Here's one you can put on your key fob. Here's one you can put in your wallet. Here's your information. If you bring this card, this tells you exactly the table to go to, so you don't have to wait. And this tells the iPad who you are, so you do not have to, it's to speed things up for you. So that is my presentation about, let me just make sure I got through everything. So yes, so that is my presentation about voting in New York State. It is in New Jersey, it's all by mail. In Florida, there's also early voting and mail voting. I will now open this to questions that anybody has. Rabbi, do you see anything in the chat that needs to be answered? Rabbi, you're on mute. Do I need to ask you to unmute? Okay. All right. I'm going to ask everybody to unmute so that if anybody has a question, they can ask it. And I see Larry with your hand up. Larry Finkelstein, you are unmuted.
Hi. So did I understand you saying that I can mail in my absentee ballot, but then go and vote in person, and that is okay, that it will just, that when they do my absentee ballot, they'll just throw it out because they'll see that I will have voted? Is that what you're saying?
I don't want to be put on record as saying that I'm saying you can do that. I'm saying that in the case where someone has mailed in a ballot, and then they change their mind, I think I didn't do it right, I was told, whatever reason, and they then go to a polling place, yes, that person who goes to that polling place will register at the polling place in the electronic database. When they sit in that big room and start opening the ballot and they come to that person's mail ballot, which they've set aside until after the polls close, they'll say, did this person vote in person? And they'll say, oh wait, that person voted in person. They say, okay, that's the vote that we count. Let's set aside that person's mail ballot. I don't believe I don't know exactly what they do with it, but yes, it is technically possible to have mailed in a mail ballot in New York State and then go to the polling place. That's okay. Does that answer your question?
That does. I have another question though.
Yes.
When my plan is to fill out the ballot and then go to an early polling place,
right,
and try to do it in person, and if not, maybe then deposit it in a box in there. Do I need to have it in all of the envelopes if I do that?
Yes.
It has to be in the mailing envelope?
Right. When you submit it, it has to be all assembled correctly. You can take it unassembled, I suppose. But if you're ready to go, what I do is fill it out completely, put it in the privacy envelope, put it in the outer envelope, sign, date, seal, make sure that the barcode is showing, so you have it in your hands. And if you say, you know what, I'm not going, there's for some reason I can't make it to the voting machine here, you can take that ballot and you can just you can drop it in the drop box. And if for some reason I just know that in the polling place where I work, we're on the 5th floor, and to get into that voting place, there's an elevator, there's a police station, there will be a temperature check, I would think. They'll be asking you questions about your COVID status. So I would hate to think that someone has to wait in that hour-long line to get in just to drop it off. I'm hoping that there are 2 lines. One of them is only to get to the drop box, and one of them only. But I don't know what your process is going to look like. Yes.
Sorry about that. I was trying to go to the participants to raise my hand electronically, but it wouldn't let me.
Stacy, hi.
Oh, hi. Sorry about that. Okay, if I understand correctly, if I send in the mail ballot, it doesn't get counted until after the election?
So Stacy, I've spoken to several different people, and I've read the website. The website for New York indicates that mail ballots are not counted until after polling places close. I will tell you that this is brand new. It's brand new to have a state where half the people may vote by mail. The way it used to be was that they finished the election and they looked and they said, okay, if candidate A is 1,000 votes ahead of candidate B, right? And there are only 500 mail ballots. There's no way that those mail ballots could possibly change the result of the election, and they wouldn't even count them. Okay, they would only count them under the if there were more mail ballots than there was a difference between the two candidates. Okay, this is totally new ground, but they're still running under the laws that say you wait and see who votes in person, and then you open the mail ballots. It may be that something happens, that they decide that they're going to start tallying them early and doing something else with them. But what I am told in New York State is that they're not opening them. They're not counting them until after polling ends. Is there a particular concern you have that I could address?
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that will my vote be counted? That's what I'm concerned.
Okay.
Your explanation sounds like if 51% of New York or whatever.
No. Yes, mail votes in New York State will be counted. They will be tallied. They will count towards that. And the electors for New York State from the Electoral College will have in their hands the results of all of the ballots that were cast in New York State, whether they were cast on a machine or cast by mail. Your ballot will count. It's just that on election night, it won't show in that tally.
Okay, then my other concern was, well, even if I went in person, because look, even when I used to go with the pandemic and you're supposed to stay 6 feet away, people are really not 6 feet away from each other. So, and then are they before you go in there, are they, like scanning you to see if you have a fever?
So I will answer that question. I went to a training, and I will tell you that they were very, very conscious about COVID regulations in our training. There were hand sanitizers. You had to wear a mask. We were 6 feet apart. There will be a lot of plexiglass in the polling places this time. But Stacy, Harold is telling Stacy that's why you should go on Monday at 11 o'clock, because it will be early voting. It is likely to be less crowded. The less crowded it is, the less time you'll have to wait in line, the less time you'll be in the voting room, the quicker you can go in and out. But I am also saying you need to make the decision that is right for you. If you get to the polling place and you say, I don't feel comfortable, I am not telling you to go into that polling place. I'm saying you have a great alternative with your mail ballot.
Okay, thank you, Harold. I appreciate it.
Jeffrey, Sharon, Jeffrey had his hand up first, and then I will go to you, Jeffrey.
Okay. The question I have is, I was originally going to go to vote early, but then I read things that people are now and this is from the Democratic Party, or supporters are saying that if you vote, that the only way they're going to really count your vote is on election day, that they may not even count the votes the early votes now.
No.
I'm getting
Jeffrey, I find that very hard to believe. That early voting will be conducted, as far as I know, on the same electronic voting machines. It will be tallied electronically. They are promoting it. If that seems like misinformation to me, I intend to vote early. Everything, there's early voting training. I'm not going to say that you misread it, but I would read it again carefully. As far as it is the New York Board of Elections. It is the same voting machines. It is heavily promoted. I would feel comfortable. I would feel as comfortable voting early as I felt voting on election day.
Okay,
we should note that they don't announce the status of votes like on TV, if you're, waiting to hear results until the election is essentially completed.
Anne is correct that they don't say in the first day of voting, this is what happened. They all go together and they release it. Polls in New York State close at 9. At 9:05, they have the electronics and they release it. Anne is absolutely right. They're not allowed to release anything until the all the
They do
polls.
have exit polls where they just talk to people and take their word for whatever they want.
And actually, I will correct myself that if you are in line at 9 o'clock, your vote is you're able to vote. Sharon Golub had a question.
Actually, I had a comment. I've had a few very lovely discussions with the Board of Election people on the phone because I had several questions. And there's a drop-off box right in their lobby. You don't even have to go upstairs. So on Varick Street, they have one in their lobby, right by the doorman, she told me. And you can just, if you don't feel that you trust the mail, she said, just bring it down, put it, it's right in our lobby. It comes right upstairs to us.
That is correct, Sharon. You can, anywhere in the country, you can always go to the Board of Elections to drop the ballot.
So that's kind of safe for people who aren't feeling safe, right?
So my question is, there are people who are still saying, I don't take public transportation. I live on, 181st Street and Broadway, and I don't take public transportation. I was going to vote. I can't make that decision, but that is a wonderful option, Sharon. A wonderful option to go to the Board of Elections, and you don't have to worry, and they just go in the lobby and you drop it off. Devorah, you've had your hand up for a while. I don't see you, but I see your hand. Are you there?
I freaked out when I saw that it said military. And I called my neighbor, who's very obsessive and compulsive. He had already called Dick Gottfried. And Dick Gottfried had sent out an email.
Excuse me, does someone have a radio or a TV on that I'm hearing?
I do in the background.
Please turn it off, Devorah. We can all hear it in it.
All right. He had called Dick Gottfried, and Dick Gottfried had already sent out an email to his constituents that it was an error.
That is correct. We have that. It should be military/absentee. It's the same ballot.
Correct.
If you got it, don't worry.
But Dick Gottfried already took care of that and got rid of that.
Right. We discussed that at quite some length earlier. But you're
I filled it out. I made sure that I signed it in the right place. I put it in the right envelope that they could see the barcode.
Right.
I gave it to my neighbor Larry.
Right.
He walked down to Varick Street and he dropped it in a little box. I'm done.
You're done. Thank you.
I feel great. I feel great. It's like off my back.
All right. So we have a few more minutes. If there are any questions or anyone else has anything to say, we can ask you, we can let you go, or you could still pop in. I think the other thing is probably going to go until 7:15. If you want to get the end of Sabrina's presentation, you're welcome to do that. Have we answered everybody's question? Was this clear? Was this helpful?
Yes, very much, Harold. I'm really glad that I attended this session. Thank you.
All right.
It was terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Rabbi,
and I want to just remind everybody that we will tomorrow be sending out all of the materials from both parts of this evening. So if you have any questions that you saw a slide go by that you're like, wait, what did that thing say? All of it will be shared with you. And again, if you go onto the website, cbst.org/vote has a lot of this information and a lot of the connections. If you're looking for the New York Board of Elections phone number, if you're looking for the email address to send a note to vote@cbst.org if you have other questions, we'll make sure that all that gets out to you, but it's also on the website.
I'm going to pop over then to Sabrina's and see what's going on there. Thank you, everybody. I know personally everybody on this call.
How do you get to Sabrina?
It's in the chat, Devorah.
Okay, fine.
The same Zoom we started in.
No, Sabrina's a different. This is the same one we started in. Sabrina.
Oh, this is the one we started in. That's right. It's in the other one.
The chat
I'm on my desktop. I'm not used to it.
Okay.
I usually do this on my iPad.
Devorah, go to Bruce Roberts gave the correct information, so go with it.
Rabbi James, right here. All right, everybody, have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Go
Bye-bye.
Team Democracy.
Okay, have a good night, everybody.
You too, Bruce.
Thank
Say
you,
hi to
Bruce.
Babette.
I definitely will.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Harold. Thanks, Rabbi.